Well, I'm here at the Georgia Guidestones for the third or fourth time, and I'm here with Lamprey Milt. I'm not going to show his visage as a courtesy to him, but we're standing here at the Guidestones, and we're talking about 9/11. It's 9/10/2021. It's a rather accurate, or it's an apt day to be at this particular site. I happen to be coming into Atlanta I was planning to come into Atlanta to do a few things this weekend, and Lamprey Milt wanted to make a voyage to Atlanta initially to see a show, but the show got canceled. So,
happy anniversary, everyone!
Yes. Happy 20th!
Happy 20th!
So, you want to, like, the story you were just telling was pretty interesting.
Which part you want me to cover?
I mean, you can, whatever you want to. Not, is anything off?
No, I can discuss most of it. Some of it's I've already I discussed previously with IM, and that in particular chat was our first strike, discussing about some of the naughty naughties and untold stories of what happened that day at the World Trade Center. You had somebody in your family who worked. Yep, it's 71st floor. It's called the Dean Witter section. So they had like 3 or 4 floors or stories that were for their. I guess I don't think it was their headquarters, but digressing, it's a lot of the people who had died in the South Tower were ones that were captivated in shock and awe, looking at what had happened directly in front of them. So they were looking at the gaping hole, and a lot of the other co-workers who were, going for the exits, they were trying to shake some sense into them. They just stayed. They were just, completely captivated by, seeing the people jump out, and, obviously they had those people making human chains jumping out of the windows. A lot of those people actually were blown out of the windows. They didn't actually jump. But
so just to get the timeline in order, this person related to you. I'm sorry, how?
Yeah, he's my uncle.
Your uncle was working in the South Tower on the 73rd floor. The South Tower was the tower that got hit first.
No, second.
Second.
The one without the antenna. That's how I was referring.
Okay. So it was the one that got hit. So first there was whatever happened at the North Tower.
Yeah, that's the big hole right through the center. I think that's like the 95th to the 105th floor, something like that. Right,
and I'm still open to lots of explanations about what happened there. But in any case, that happened, and how did your uncle react and his co-workers react when that initial strike happened?
Well, there was a recording, a woman's voice stating, "Stay where you are. No need for panic," something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing here, but it was to stay where you are. Okay?
It sounds so dystopian, just like something from out of a dystopian movie. Yes, some soothing woman's voice as the world erupts around you.
Right. So my uncle is like,
no need for panic.
He's a bit of an airhead. He doesn't pay attention to anything or anyone, and he heard the recording and thought to himself, wait a second, it's a recording, it's not an actual person, on the intercom system stating stay where you are. Whoever had pressed that button to hit that, to make sure that announcement was made, had already left the building. And I guess one way or another, most of the people in the office realize, we're getting the hell out of here.
So and I was saying to you before, that's something that I love about, you gotta love about New Yorkers. Like they're just gonna say, "Fuck that!
Yeah.
I'm out of here."
See ya.
Yeah.
Well,
So
what was really interesting, though, and I thought what was quite revealing about human nature is, and I actually talked to Tim Kelly a little bit about this, is that sometimes just the baboon logic, the animal instinct, where in some cases people panic, riot, stampede. But on the day of 9/11, they were totally calm, cool, and collective. They got up. They hit the, they went down the staircase. There was no bum rushing, people getting knocked over, stepping on individuals.
It was very orderly.
It was very orderly. Yeah.
So, and people were leaving after there was one explosion or one hit or whatever hit the other tower, and then as your uncle was coming down the staircase, that was when the plane actually,
he was about 10 or 20 flights down by the time the second plane hit, and he said that everyone froze and they thought the whole building was going to fall over, and then I guess the way the building was constructed, that it kind of did a whiplash back into place, and kind of like swayed a little bit, and then everyone then they moved much quicker at that point. So
right. So because the building was structured, or so they tell us. So I remember hearing in some documentary that was made before 9/11 that the building was structured in a way to withstand several plane crashes.
It was designed at the time to withstand the biggest jet in 1971, 1972.
Right.
So by 2001, there you're talking about an Airbus,
right,
which was probably maybe about 30% increase in size.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily rule out the fact that airplanes brought it down, but who really knows? You hear so many stories.
Yeah. So then he got out, and did anything happen after that?
No. I just a couple other side notes is that it was there was a Monday night football game the night previously. It was a Giants game, so a lot of people had fallen sick and were not at work that day. I think whoever had planned the attack maybe should have took that into consideration. And a lot of the people who survived the World Trade Center felt like they were betrayed, because they had thought that they were going to go to war with an actual nation, not an invisible enemy, like some hijackers who apparently were very wealthy and drove BMWs.
Yeah.
And it's a sombering event, and it was a serious. I felt calling it the Freedom Tower, and how long it took to build it, and how ugly it is. And I don't even think it's even before the coup. There was a crazy amount of space still available for rent that they couldn't even fill up the building. And I think the last 20 stories are just Potomkins. There's nothing in them. It's just to make it look like as if it's.
You're talking about the building that's the World Trade Center 1.
Yeah,
that's there now.
Freedom Tower.
Right.
What a joke. Here we are. It's Freedom Tower 20 years later, and we're being threatened by our so-called president.
20 years later, the entire war in Afghanistan is undone. Taliban back in power, and now the chief executive threatens the population. Tells us that his patience is wearing thin with us, isn't it? This was like the point. That might have been the point where things just began, when the dystopian arc maybe began. Although it probably began before that, but I'm just saying.
Well, I always say that it was 2012.
I'm just going to show the place where the commandments, quote unquote, are written in English. So you go ahead. What were you saying?
What is it? It says 500 million. Hopefully, we're one of the 500 million.
Hopefully, yeah. And so that raises the question about which is not safe for YouTube, but I don't care particularly.
Fauci elixir.
So, have you seen the show Utopia? Miniseries called Utopia.
No. What is that?
It's incredible. It's it was a British show first, and then they adapted it, and it came out in 2020 in the midst of the so-called pandemic, whatever you want to call it. it was like there was some secret powerful group which causes this virus and unleashes this virus on the world, and then creates this vaccine to rid the world of the virus. But what is revealed in either the last episode or the penultimate episode, I can't remember which one it is, by the main villain, who's played by John Cusack, is that the whole the injection, the vaccine, has some agent in it that causes sterility. So, in other words, people will get the vaccine and then
can't reproduce.
Won't be able to reproduce, and it'll be a way of bringing about this, curing the problem of overpopulation that gets addressed here in this first commandment, of bringing the population down to 500 million. I find it pretty incredible that this was a show. This is like a revelation of the method kind of thing. It strikes me like that they would have this. I mean, I encourage you to look into it if you're interested.
Yeah.
But that they would, in the midst of all this, they would have this show where these things were playing out, and then they talk about how.
Building upon that, let's go back to the summer of 2019, what was the hit movie, The Joker?
Mm-hmm.
What they wind up doing? They're all wearing masks and burning and torching and looting a city.
Yes, that I noticed how that sort of came to play out in 2020 in some ways as well.
Hidden messages, tip of the hand.
Yeah. But that was a little less quote unquote on the nose.
Correct.
Than this. So yeah, this is really, really something. In fact, I think it might even be hard to find. It's one of those things that the algorithm hides if you look for it. If you type in Utopia, John Cusack, vaccine, scene, then you'll probably just get John Cusack and say anything, holding the boombox up or something. That'll probably be the first 10 or 20 things things that are only tangentially relevant. I don't know if you've noticed that, like on YouTube especially. If you try to look up something, like you try to look up George Bush New World Order speech,
right?
Nothing comes up. Like you have to scroll.
Yeah, you have to do 3 or 4 pages.
Yeah,
to find it.
And the first thing that comes up is one of those stupid Snopes.com debunking
fact checker.
Yeah, fact checking things. I mean, it's really incredible. Like YouTube wasn't like that 5 years ago.
Not even 4. Yeah, maybe 5. Yep, you're right.
I mean, it used to be, if you got on YouTube and typed in Sandy Hook, that videos.
We'll need to talk about Sandy Hook, crisis actors.
Yeah, that would be the top 15, 20, maybe more. Like it was all.
The comments weren't removed.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was just there. But at some point, they thought, oh boy, we better get a hold of this.
Well, Cass Sustein says it's bad when people come to an agreement on something, so we have to discourage agreements. And he was Obama's communications czar. Yeah. And there's videos of him talking about censorship on the comment section in Yahoo and YouTube, where it's not good when people come to an agreement. I mean, that's bizarre and quite tyrannical to state something like that.
What does that mean when people come to an agreement?
That there should be an opposition. So if everyone's in agreement on something in a comment section, right? Like I'm in agreement that, let's hypothetically say, 19 Arab hijacker terrorists caused 9/11. Oh yes, we're in agreement. He doesn't like that, so he's insinuating that there should be a counterbalance, and it should be the government's job or something in the public-private partnership. One of these, people that receive government contracts should go about and, basically make things more murky.
So it's almost like the strategy of disharmony.
Correct.
Or disharmonizing
an agreement.
Yeah, of making it so that you have a culture where everybody's at each other's throats. Like that's maybe in the elite's interest. I don't know. Was that
Smith-Mundak?
Yeah.
Perhaps? I mean, really, when all this kind of this woke SJW and us really questioning reality and our sanity came about in 2012 when they, I guess, revised the Smith-Mundak.
Right. Tell them about tell them in your words what the Smith-Mundak is all about.
The United States government can now propagandize the American citizen, the American people. In summary, there's a wiki page on it. You can look it up for yourself and see how they revised it.
And it came about in 2012, and before that, it was supposedly illegal to propagandize the American public.
That's right.
You could propagandize other nations, but not the American public. But they came up with some pretext for why it was good or necessary to do that. You see, the weird thing about that is I don't even know why they, do they really need something in law to do anything that they do? I mean, do they care about law, except, I guess, as a pretext of some kind, or cover, or something like that?
Well, look at where we are today. I mean, a year and a half ago, it was, stop the spread. Then it was flatten the curve. Then it was find the cure.
Yeah.
Went from find the cure to get the elixir, elixir to camps.
Yeah.
As in the case in Australia.
Yeah. Australia's way out of hand. I talked about that in a prior video. Things are just crazy.
And people just have a hard time reflecting and taking a look back. Even just looking back at 9/11 and realize how much of a lie it was. Why would you think this is no different? We're living in two separate realities at this point. There's the online world, and then there's us standing here enjoying a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day.
And it's so weird that now you're seeing the online world spill out over into reality.
Yeah. Although, don't you think, looking at it on the optimistic side, don't you think more people are aware of these kinds of things that wouldn't have? I mean, I certainly wasn't aware of any of this 20 years ago, and even 10 years ago, I wasn't that aware.
What was your when did you think you became so-called red-pilled?
I can't really put a date to it. I remember when I published, I self-published a book called Conspiracy, Compliance, Control, and Defiance, and that was in 2015, I think, when I released that book. And at that point, I was quote unquote red-pilled, but I wasn't ready to be out of the closet, as it were.
Right.
So I was very careful in my phraseology of things. I was bringing up things like 9/11 and Sandy Hook, but I was saying it in a way like whether it actually happened the way they reported it happening, or whether it happened some other way, it was these things were seized upon for propagandistic purposes to terrorize and psychologically deform the population.
Psyop.
Yeah, as a psyop. So I gave myself cover by saying even if it happened exactly the way they said it did, which I didn't really believe, but I wasn't ready to say obviously it didn't happen that way. And that was 2015. So I would say, but I think my biggest red pill was Franklin. It was the Franklin scandal. When I researched that and found out about that, and just couldn't convince myself that it wasn't true.
Let's pay homage to the Arabic over here. Alhamdulillah.
Here we go. This is Mandarin. They just call it Chinese in the key for some reason. There's many different Chinese languages.
Hey, you were telling me something about this hole over here. Something to do with the sunlight?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you much more than that. But yeah, I think this was built in a way that at a certain time, when the sun's at a certain position in the sky, it maybe reflects down.
Yeah, true. Maybe it shoots out. And
Like,
see, the
like the scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, where he's holding the staff of Ra. It's sort of, and the sun comes in and it filters through and points to where the ark is, or something. I don't know.
There's
something
some crazy engravings down at the corner too. I don't know if you paid attention to that. Maybe it's like the person's initials.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know whether I'll be able to.
This is so cringe. We're literally in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I'm looking at horses out in the distance.
I don't know if I got it or not. Yeah, I know. This is, you know, I've been here before and depicted. I think the times I've been here before, it's been like a cloudy day and a windy sort of day. But today, it's, you know, beautiful, clear, sunny day, not too hot. And there's horses grazing just a little ways away, and this is, yeah, really like in the middle of just in the sticks.
Yeah, middle of nowhere. Georgia's beautiful, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
As a Georgian, I accept your compliment, I guess.
Well, it's not your land, okay? It's Native Americans.
I know.
1614.
I know. It's the Cherokees' land,
Cherokees,
technically.
Right, you stole it.
It probably belonged to somebody else before they took it too, but we don't talk about that. But anyway, yeah. So what about yourself? When did you
I would
come
probably
around?
say the death of Gaddafi and the war in Syria.
Uh-huh.
I thought, you know, the way he had passed away and knowing a little bit about him,
Yeah.
you know, I thought that was really sad and quite awful.
We came, we saw, he died.
Yeah, I thought that was really, I thought that was god awful the way he died. He died with his best friend next to him too, who was trying to protect him.
Mm.
And you know, reading some of his dying words, and his two sons, the way they had died. Well, his one son, the way he had died. You know, he died like a man.
Mm-hmm.
I really respect that. And learning a little bit about Gaddafi at you know, I was like 21, 22. You know, smoking a ton of weed, just, you know, getting lost in the broadband and the airwaves.
That's kind of funny. Gaddafi was your red pill. That's interesting.
Yeah, because my parents, you know, spoke about him here and there, and they kind of admired him to one extent or another, just being a neighbor of Italy and such. Oh. And then that rolled right into the war in Syria. And I remember reading, like, my first New York Times article was about, you know, guns being shipped from Benghazi to Syria, and then the whole war in Syria erupted. You saw some of the videos out of Syria, how there wasn't there. Suddenly
Al Qaeda were the good guys, right?
Right. And just seeing that the police weren't armed and they're just getting shot upon by who knows who was shooting them. So we're being presented a false reality based on what the mainstream media was telling us. Again, it was totally not true, and that really aggravated me. And I just found, like, you know, all these other YouTube personalities at the time. I think, like, Ry Dawson was, like, one of the first people I found. And I liked Michael Savage a lot. You know, he was like kind of a neocon shill. Yeah. But he was pretty good. He was talking about some serious red pill topics.
Yeah.
And, you know, for whatever reason, the mainstream media hated him quite a bit. But that was pretty much it. And then,
even though he was incredibly Jewish.
Yes, he is. He's from Queens, and his son's a billionaire.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, his son's a billionaire. He's the founder of Rockstar Energy Drink.
Oh.
But and from there, because of my line of work at the time, I discovered Agenda 21, and then I just ran with it. I just